Welcome to the Fitness Skinny. I designed this workout for prenatal and postnatal mamas in mind. Anybody can do this workout, but this is perfect for that. I'm going to use a small ball for the first half of the class. If you don't have a ball, alternatively, you could use a small pillow. Don't stress if you don't have either. It's really not a necessity, but if you're going to use something, I'm holding it in my hands, rolling my spine down, finding a stretch through my hammies at the bottom, hanging, and then using my core to roll up bone by bone, being mindful of stacking up one vertebrae at a time, returning everything back to neutral. Head over shoulders, shoulders over hips, hips over knees. Maybe keep your knees soft here. You don't need to be touching the ground. Sneak your ball, if you have it, down your left side. Right arm reaches up and over. Do that 2 times. If you're mirroring me, you're on your right. This might not work if you have a pillow, so you could just ditch that pillow and just sneak your arm down your leg. Ground through your feet. Make sure you have weight in your left foot. And then switch sides. And sneak either your hand or the ball down your left thigh, reaching your right arm up and over, feeling that stretch through your right side body. And taking the ball, reaching it forward or a pillow, shoulders melting. Try to keep your hips level, and you're going to march, pulling up and in with your center. So feel your core contract first before you pick a knee up. See if you can also try to keep your shoulders level. So easier said than done. Sometimes it's more conducive to step your feet a little wider for more stability. If you're feeling like you're really shifting from side to side, the more you pull up with your center, the easier this will be. And then this is going to change to knees wide, so more 45-degree angle. Notice how your body compensates. I'm seeing myself shift here more. See if you can omit that shift, pulling up with your center. You might have to start with a wider stance. I'm showing you a more advanced option, lifting your arms overhead. That's always something you could do to make this a little bit more challenging if you needed more of a balance challenge. And stepping your right foot back. If you're mirroring, it's going to be your left foot. You're going to go into a lunge, raise your arms, and then see if you can balance drawing that left knee up. Very similar to what we were doing earlier. If balancing just isn't happening, come to where your toes are just touching your mat, so you don't have to lift that knee in front of you. Do that on your right side. See how low you can get that right knee towards the ground. Squaring those hips off, shoulders melting. And on 10, I'm just going to turn so you can see my side profile. I'm going to use that ball or pillow in between my knees for proper alignment. Sit your glutes back like you're sitting in a chair, reaching your arms forward, counterbalance, suck in on your core to sit those hips back. Can you weight your heels heavily? Use your glutes, use your core to stand. A proper squat. Knees are going forward, hips are going back. Initiate this with that hip hinge, creating that crease in the front of your hips. Hold. Can you squeeze that ball 10 with those inner thighs? And then a little pulse, just sitting your seat back for 10. Again, weight is in your heels. You're gonna rise, you're gonna lift your left heel. Do that same squat, down and up, with your left heel lifted if possible. So you're gonna feel a little bit more engagement on that right glute, your right seat. You're gonna have more weight in your right heel. Again, you're gonna hold, squeeze in on that ball, engaging your inner thighs for 10, and then you're gonna do 10 little pulses, seeing if you can keep that left heel lifted the whole time. Repeat that on your right side. So you're gonna rise your right heel, give me 10 squats, keeping your right heel lifted, suck up on your core every time you rise, get height, find that neutral spine. Can you go 10 squeezes, inner thigh squeezes, initiating this with your low abs, 10 little pulses. Can you stay low? Alternate heel lifts from right to left, flow through 10. Can you lift both heels? Can you keep your heels lifted? Go for those little pulses. And then go for those squeezes. Heels maintain a lift. Rise. You're going to take your ball and lower yourself down onto your mat. Set up for bridges. So you've got your ball or pillow in between your inner thighs, right below your knee or above your knee, depending on how you look at it. You're going to bridge your hips up, articulate one vertebrae at a time, inhaling. Exhale, lower your hips down. Try to connect each vertebrae one at a time on your mat. Articulating. On 10, hold 10, squeeze in on that pillow or ball for me with your inner thighs. So those inner thigh squeezes for 10. And pick your knees up, keep the ball or pillow. You're going to internally rotate your knees towards each other. Counterbalancing, your heels will go out to the side. So as your knees go inward, your heels go kind of out. And you're going to squeeze that pillow / ball. This one's an interesting one. It almost makes your hips bones feel like they're being pulled apart. But this should definitely kick in those low transverse abs. Every time you squeeze that ball, squeeze in, pull in and up with your center, your core, your low abs. Feel that engagement. Can you move a little quicker and almost pulse those knees in, in, in? I'm going to reach my arms back, pull them through, and lift my hips at the same time. Flow through 5 of these. You should feel really nice. When you reach your arms back, don't let your ribs pop. On 5, you're going to ditch the ball. Give me a figure 4 stretch. Right ankle on top of left. If you need it deeper, thread your arms underneath your left leg. As you pull your left leg in, actively push your right knee away, feeling that hip stretch, that glute stretch. Can you elongate the back of your hips, grounding your tailbone, staying in that figure 4 position? Can you push into your left heel and rise? You're going to do a bridge in that figure 4. Count 5 of these. Articulate through your spine. On 5, can you keep your bridge and just lift and lower that left heel up, down, up, down? Can you keep that heel lifted? You're going to extend that right leg straight and then bring your right heel back onto your left knee, back to figure 4. You can make this more advanced by lifting your arms to the sky. Keep your hips lifted, keep them level. Relax down. Find that figure 4 stretch. Staying in that figure 4. Twisting in your spine feels good. Let your knees flow to the left, look to the right. Keep your right shoulder grounded. You're going to take your right ankle off, recross your legs, go for that stretch on your second side, maybe threading your arms underneath that right leg. Again, finding length through the back of your hips. Try to keep your tailbone grounded. Take a few more breaths into your glutes. Go for your bridge, grounding your right heel. You're going to roll your hips up, roll your hips down. Can you continually open that left knee to the sky, feeling that deep stretch through your front hip flexor on your left side? Hold 5. Can you lift and lower your right heel up and down? On 5, can you keep your heel lifted? Reach that left leg to about 45 degrees and then recross figure 4. Try to keep those hips up. Try to keep them still. Maybe your arms are lifted to the sky. Less stability here, making it more challenging. And cross that left over your right one more time. And you could go for that spine twist on this side if that first side felt good. So you're going to drop your knees to the right and look left, keeping your left shoulder grounded. Visiting core, can you keep your low back still? Initiate your knee lifts with your pelvic floor. So you're scooping those abs. You're going to go right into dying bug. Opposite arm, opposite leg reaches away from your midline. Do not let your back arch. Don't let your ribs pop. You're moving as big as you can keep your spine still. This is a lot of core engagement. You can change the intensity of this exercise by changing the height of how high you're reaching your fingers and your toes. So if you need it easier, reach those arms, opposite arm, opposite leg, straight up to the sky. Alternatively, you could dip a bent knee away from you if you needed to keep that knee bent. Bring your hands behind your head, but head stays down. Can you flex your feet for me? Keep your hips still. Dip one heel towards the ground, inhale. Exhale, raise it, keeping your spine neutral. Avoid arching through your low back. Can you keep the front of your Stomach drawn in. Try not to let it pop up. This is levels. So if this level is feeling good for you, stay here. Your heel does not need to touch the ground. You're going as low as you can. Hold stable in your spine. And then if you want a more advanced version, you're going to squeeze those inner thighs together. Knees connect. Try to dip both heels. You're inhale, lowering, exhale, lifting. Contracting on your core to lift your knees up. Trying not to use momentum or your hip flexors. You're going to see if you can avoid gripping with those hips. If you're too grippy, go back to those single knee taps, heel taps. We're going to come onto your side. I'm going to be up on my elbow. Alternatively, you can be down on your arm. See if you can keep your bottom waistline lifted. You're going to align your heels up with your tailbone so your knees are about 45 degrees. You can do this with your bottom heel touching the mat, or you can lift it. I show both versions. Keep your heels connected, and you're going to go right into what's called clam. You're going to lift your top knee as high as it'll go without letting that top hip roll behind you. If you're a counter, we're going to go for 20. Pull up with your center. Try to keep that bottom waistline lengthened and lifted off the mat. If you're down on the ground, create a little space between your waistline and mat. I call it a mouse hole. Hold 20, go for 20 little pulses, trying to push that knee up without affecting where your placement of your top hip is. That flat surface of your top hip should stay flat. Bring your knees a little bit more to 90. You're going to lift your top knee so it's parallel to the ground. Internally rotate, kiss your knees together, and then come back to that parallel knee lift. So really your knee is kind of staying the same height until it swoops down to kiss your bottom knee. Go right into what's called knee circles. You're going to go 10 in one direction, 10 the other way. Think of it as circling your femur bone inside your hip socket. It's a great visual when you're burning. This should be working your outer thigh. On 10, can you come onto your supporting elbow? Open up your shoulder just slightly. You're going to support yourself by pushing lightly into your opposite hand, squaring your hips off and somewhat shoulders off to the mat. You're going to lift and lower that working leg with your glute. Try 8, and then you're going to drive that knee in to touch your elbow and try to return that leg straight, hitting the same height if possible every set. We're doing 8 of each of these. On 8, you're going to keep that leg straight, swoop it forward like you're drawing a rainbow. Can you tap your toes down and then swoop it back to that starting position? Can you maintain stability through your spine, through your hips? Your core is working hard to stabilize. On 8, you're going to reach your working leg forward till you feel a catch in your glute, like you're trying to kick your own nose. Lift and lower that leg for 8, and then pulse it forward for 8, maintaining that same height. Sit on your side seat. Reach for your ankles. Your legs could be stacked here or staggered. I'm showing you stacked to start. Bend towards your bent knees. And then with your supporting hand underneath your shoulder, bend towards your supporting hand. Counter stretch. I'm gonna do that 2 more times. Every set, can you reach your supporting arm a little further away from you, getting a deeper side bend, lifting in and up with your side body as you bend over. Here's the stagger stance. With a stagger stance, you might be able to get a little bit more range of motion on that last one, maybe even putting your elbow on the ground. Switch sides for me. So you're gonna come onto your other side, set up for clam. Your bottom heel could be lifted or touching down on the mat. We're going for 20. I like to put my top hand on my hip to ensure that it's not rolling back and staying level. Imagine you could balance something on that flat surface, like a cup of coffee. You don't want it to spill. How big can you open that knee without having your hip roll back? You're gonna hold 20 and go for those little pulses. After 20 little pulses, you're going to move your knees a little bit more 90 degrees so that your femur bones are directly kind of coming out of those hips. You're going to go for that internal rotation knee kiss. So lifting your top knee parallel to the ground, you're going to internally rotate, kiss your knees together, come back to that parallel position. We're doing 10 of these. Then you're going to carry this right into your hip circles. Think of it as circling your femur bone or your knee, drawing a perfect little circle, 10 in one direction, 10 the other way. Keeping that top hip stacked, lengthen bottom waistline. Your bottom waistline is lifted off the mat, whether you're down or up on your elbow. Turn to face the floor, coming onto that supporting elbow, squaring your hips off, almost squaring your shoulders off. You could have a little bit of openness in the shoulder that's facing me. You're gonna go for 8 of these glute lifts, and then you're gonna drive that knee in towards your elbow, reaching the length of that leg back, trying to hit that same height with your foot every time. And when you do 8, you're gonna go for those arcs. So you're sweeping that leg forward, seeing if you can tap your toes, sweeping that leg back, finding that same height with your leg lift every time. Can you do a little kick forward like you're trying to kick your nose? Go for 8. And then a little pulse up, down for 8. Sit onto your side, that working side. Stack your hips. Either staggered or stacked legs. You're bending towards your bent knees first. Supporting hand starts underneath your shoulder as you counter stretch. Walk it a little further away from you every set. See if you can do this 3 times. On that third one, you're gonna get as big of a stretch away from you as you can. When you lean into that supporting arm, this should feel good. And coming onto hands and knees, actually start with that stacked side position on the side. Your hand is going to go slightly in front of your shoulder. You're going to bend and straighten that arm in its entirety. How straight can you get your elbow? Working your tricep. Try to keep your working shoulder drawn away from your ear. Again, you can place that top hand on your hip and then go for a little tiny pulse at the bottom. You might not be touching your elbow down. That is okay. Try to keep that shoulder relaxed. Now you'll turn to face the ground. On hands and knees, tilt your tail up. Again, hands are slightly in front of those shoulders. See if you can lower those elbows down where they touch or barely touch, and then push those arms straight. If you haven't guessed yet, we are working triceps. Can you stay neutral here or have a slight tilt up of your tail so your core is contracted? Coming onto your seat, hands pretty close to your hips. You might have to adjust where they are in space. You're going to bend elbows towards the ground. They might touch down on your mat, and then push away. Lift your sternum, melt your shoulders, activate your core. Let your upper body, your torso, kind of come along for the ride here. Make those arms move you. Can you pick your seat up? Do a little pulse here, and it doesn't have to be big to feel this. I'm barely bending my elbows. Try 10. You're going to repeat. If you want to give yourself a little spine twist, you can. Sitting tall. We have one more side to work, so stacking those knees, facing me, working that opposite side. Go for that side-seated tricep press. The setup here is your hand is slightly in front of your shoulders. You have enough room to bend that elbow close to the ground. It might not touch, or it could be touching, depending on your range of motion. And hold down and go for a little tiny pulse, so just a smaller range of motion, not straightening that elbow all the way. And then this is going to be a little different. You're going to still bend those elbows, but at the bottom, can you do a little pull through? So you're pulling your heart forward, melting those shoulders. Notice my elbows are just hovering. They're not touching for that pull through. Tilted tail or neutral spine here. Core activated. Maybe flow through some cat-cows if that feels good. Inhale, looking up, arching. Exhale, rounding. Take what you need here. Articulate through your spine. Maybe come to downward dog, push yourself back. I'm going to walk towards my toes, round my spine up, and revisit a couple arm exercises here. What's brilliant about these is you don't need weight to feel them. Stand with soft knees, feet hip width apart, goal post arms. You're going to open those arms out to the side, pull them in. Can you keep your sternum up, belly button back, soft knees, long spine? You're going for 10. Add on, you're going to open, do a little pulse up. Elbows rise like you're sliding your fingertips up a wall. Slide them down and then close your arms. You're sliding as far as you can slide up without letting your shoulders rise. You're going to pull your shoulders in opposition. On 10, you're going to pull your arms together right in front of your chest. Squeeze your elbows, pulse your elbows up, melt those shoulders down. They're working against each other, oppositional forces. Can you lean slightly forward? If this position doesn't feel good for you in your spine, you can stand straight up, but you're going to have a nice straight line from your head to your tail. You're starting in goalpost arms. You're sliding those arms up. You're going to lift them slightly, slide them down. Keep contracting those shoulder blades down and back. Keep lifting your sternum. Keep pulling those abs in. You're going to hold a tricep press. You're just straightening and bending those elbows. Try to get those elbows straight the whole time, every set. Hold 10, go a little tiny pulse, straight arms back, back, back. Flow through a few circles here. Notice my palms are rotating down, rotating up as I sweep my arms back like I'm treading through water. Flow through a few more side bend stretches, sneaking one arm down, reaching the opposite arm up and over. This should feel good. Even weight in your feet, feet hip width apart. Maybe shake out your upper body, shake out your arms. Give me a chest shoulder stretch by reaching one arm across and then the other. And then carry this into a tricep press by reaching one arm back. Can you lift your chin, push your head back slightly into that stretching arm. Switch sides if you haven't already. Thanks for joining me today. Hope you enjoyed.